Hello, this is Gary Aldridge with LeveragingYOU, and today's podcast we're bringing Larry Feltz. Larry's a good friend of mine. Try to bring subject matter experts to the table so that you can hear what to do and what not to do to help you add value to your business. Larry's got a wealth of experience, and we really appreciate him taking the time to come visit with us today. Hello, Larry. Thank you for coming. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you, Gary. Thanks for asking me. I always enjoy our time together.
I know you and I know what you do and appreciate that, but just help our listeners get a better feel for exactly what you do and how you got there and what you do to help business owners.
Well, thank you. So I'll just quickly tell you how I got here. I got here through a career in public accounting with some of the biggest firms in the world. And so I worked on a lot of transactions and worked with a lot of big companies. And then I retired from that 20 years ago and started working with regional companies and local companies, local accounting firms, mostly in business development area. And the last firm I was with, and I say there were several because it seemed like if you wanted to sell your firm, you hired me and then we would sell it and then I'd go on. So I was involved in a number of transition of firms. The last one I was with, they were a consulting firm. We're interested in some recurring revenues. And so we set up a back office outsourcing firm. Think of for small businesses, managing the accounting, IT, HR, back office operations of their company so the owners could do what they love to do, which is operate their business. And as we did that, we had very rapid growth and success. And that firm leadership came back and said, well, we didn't expect it to go quite this big or this fast. And we've re-looked at it. And every time we get out of our lane, we get killed. So if you'd like to have these clients, you can take them into your own business. And then 6 years ago, that's what I did. And so then I became an owner. And the view changed dramatically from the other side of the table at that point in time. And I began to understand some of the issues and the pains and the things that owners face and the challenges. And in that transition, an event occurred that led me to go even into an additional route, and that was to become a certified exit planning advisor and then a value builder advisor to help small business owners as they approach the transition time of their business. So we do several things. We still do the back office accounting for a lot of people, both not-for-profits and for-profits. And we help any way we can with owners. But we also then we get involved in some of these issues of being owners. And if you ask me to describe the business sort of simply, I would say we try to create awareness of things, the traps and the opportunities, and we try to educate owners how to navigate, and then we come along with them to create strategies and action plans, and we become the facilitator and the accountability partner as they work their way toward a successful transition.
What are some of the traps? I heard you use that word. I like it. What are some of the traps that you see business owners step into, fall into, that would be good if they knew about them so they could see them before they step in them?
Well, that's a great one, and it really, I mean, as a valuation person, I'm sure you've seen this more than a few times. The first one is the owners generally have no idea what their business is worth. But even before that, they haven't given any thought to a transition, especially the baby boomer generation that have owned these businesses, maybe like way back. When I came out of high school, I went into the service because We had a draft, and we had a Vietnam War, and everybody was going in the military. And I ended up going into the Air Force, and I ended up being sent to a base into their accounting department, and that's where my career began. And so that tracked on to working with a lot of businesses and seeing a lot of successes and a lot of failures. But owners in my generation, they came home, they started a business based on the skills they gained in the military, or they joined their father's or their uncle's business, and they've been doing this for 30 and 40 years. It's all they know. They get up every day, they do it. They went right past the age of 65 when there was this belief there was going to be a $10 trillion transition of all these private businesses. Well, guess what? 10 years later, it's a $26 trillion transition of all these businesses. And
Wow.
These people don't have a choice. Now they're aging out of their businesses. They're faced with health issues and other issues, and they have to sell the businesses. They have no idea what they're worth. They don't realize that if they don't get certain things in order, they may not be able to sell their business at all. Many, 75% of small businesses don't end up selling or sell for a fire sale because the owners just waited too long. So the first thing is begin really very early now today to focus on building, protecting, building, protecting, building, protecting. Have a plan, because 50% of the business transitions don't occur when the owner plans to do it. They occur because of a death, a disability, a divorce, a disagreement with your partner, some sort of a disruption that forces you into a forced transaction. And if you're not ready at that point in time, you're going to get a fraction of the money and the time and effort that you've put in to try to build this is going to dissipate before your very eyes.
Right. I talk with owners sometimes when they say, I wouldn't sell my business for less than, pick a number, $5 million. And this happened not too long ago. And so I said to the business owner, okay, what does the buyer get? If I wrote you a check, which I can't, for $5 million today, well, what do I get? And he hesitated. I said, well, the reality is nothing. Okay, because you're the business owner and you're the guy that makes it happen. And if you're gone, then what is there? There's no hard assets, no land, building, or equipment. What are they going to get? They're going to get a handful of contacts, which they could get on their own. So why would I do that? And he still didn't get the point. He just said, well, I still wouldn't sell it for less than $5 million. So what? Well, good luck with that. Another guy is in this different owner came to me and said, well, I want to sell in 18 months. What can you do to raise my value? I said, well, that's not a lot of runway. Unless you want to gut your costs significantly, which you don't want to do, because then you can't provide service, or you have some massive sales campaign, which you don't want to give away the store. It takes a long time to move the needle, So, that gets back to what you just said about having a plan. We hear that a lot, and that may sound cliche, but it's really true. A plan is not, I want to kick the can down the road and see what happens. That's not a plan. That's just a hope and a dream, but it's nothing you can execute. But they absolutely got to have that. And execution, I think, is the main point where people fall down. They like you said, half of them don't have a plan, and the half that do have a plan don't execute that plan. So at the end of the day, they don't get what they want. The other thing I think about is the buyers actually will determine what it's going to sell for. That's a hard reality. Okay, think about this. If you want to sell your house for, pick a number, $1 million, and you talk to 10 different people, and your best offers, whatever, $600,000, $700,000, $800,000. That's what the market says it's worth. Now you get to decide whether you want to sell it or not. And that depends on whether you have leverage. Okay. And leverage is time and money. If you've got time and money on your side, then you can hold out and wait for a better offer. But like you said, a lot of these guys, they're in a fire sale mode. They got to take what they could get. And just like on Shark Tank or on Fixer Upper, they don't pay premium dollars for houses that are fixer uppers. They buy them at a distress sale, and then you get what you get. And they're not there to make you feel good. They're there to get a deal for them. So having that plan and having to execute is critical. What are some of the success stories that you've encountered or worked with where somebody actually did it the best way, the right way, or an optimal way to prepare their business for transition, to maximize their value, make it smooth, and do all the right things? What would that look like?
Well, it would look unusual. That's what it would look like.
Unicorn.
Yeah, they'd be a unicorn because, very few. And of course, I think if you find that, then you'll find that people will get a greater value. The valuation business is, I could say it's very complicated because it can be, but it's pretty simple in some respects. The buyer and our business, one of my business aspects is I work with owners through the eyes of a buyer. So I'm trying to help him understand as a buyer how I see his business, not through the rose-colored glasses that he's wearing. And in doing that, I tell them that no one really cares how hard you worked or all the sweat equity that you put into it or all of the time and effort or the 40-hour days or the 90-hour weeks or whatever. They're going to pay you for the cash flow, for the future cash flow that your business generates.
That's right.
That's it. That's unless you have some sort of an incredible intellectual property. In the day-to-day guy that runs his business generates cash flow. That's what they live off of, and that's what the buyer buys. And the amount that they pay you will be based on how well your company is run today, how well you're running it. They're not going to pay you for the value that they put into it, of how well it could run if it had more capital or more people. They're going to pay you for what you're generating today. And the number of times those annual cash flows they're going to give you are commensurate with the risk they're taking. Their ability to see that, the assurance that they're going to get that deal. If they're sort of shaky about whether they can continue to run the business and get that amount of cash, they'll pay you 2.5, 3 times. If they have great confidence in your business, then they may pay you 5 or 6 times. The other thing that I think a lot of owners they hear about people getting 20 times and 30 times, and that's just not realistic unless, again, you're in some sort of a wild tech business. Your multiple, if you really break it down, is the number of years it's going to take them to pay you back based on the amount of money your business is generating, the cash it's generating today. So, but the good deal happens when the owner becomes educated, when they know what they don't know, when they go to experts that can help them, and when they listen to what their advice is, when they're not the smartest person in the room and they're always making it a debate or an argument and they know more. Invariably, that's not the case. Just because their buddy sold, a business that looked a little bit like theirs for 8 times doesn't mean they're going to sell theirs for more than 2. The facts and circumstances, when you really break it down, it can be dramatically different. You got one guy that's living out of his business, one guy that's legally running the business, investing in the business, investing in technology in the business, efficiencies. Those are the things where you end up with success stories, I think.
Yeah, I've heard people, I know they ask me this too, like, what kind of multiple can I get? And I heard somebody here in Nashville speak on this some time ago. It was pre-COVID, but it's true today as it was then. And I probably both know the same person, but he said he sees multiples range from 2.5 times EBITDA to 12.5 times EBITDA, but the higher concentration is between 4 to 6. And if you think about it, I know you know this, and I look at it, I look at everything based on return on investment. If I'm going to get, let's just say, I'm trying to make the math simple for listeners while you're driving down the interstate. If I'm going to pay somebody $1 million for their business, and I'm going to get $200,000 of cash flow back every year, well, that's a 20% return. 200,000 divided by $1 million, which not coincidentally, that's a multiple of 5. So a multiple of 5 times EBITDA is going to get you about a 20% return. That's kind of a benchmark for me. And I heard another guy M&A area said most of his multiples would average out about 5 because, and usually I'm on the buy side of something more so than on the sell side. But when I looked at something, I would use that factor of 5 because I wanted a 20% return. Now, in the stock market, that's going to be up and down, but you can get on average over the last 20, 50 years, whatever benchmark you want to use for the S&P 500, that return on investment's about 10 or 11%, depending on when your cutoffs are. So 20% return year over year is a pretty good return, depending on the level of risk involved. The other thing I tell owners is the more time and money that a buyer has to invest in your business to get it to where he or she wants it, that's less value for you. And the less time and money that a buyer's got to put into your business means the more value that they're going to pay you. So it's like, do you want to do it or you want them to do it? If you do it, you can get more money. If you're going to let them do it, then you're going to get less money. And that's just the real world. That's just the way it is. What are some things that you do specifically with the services that you offer that you've helped add value to business owners? You've seen a change from, because I know you do accounting work, but I know you do a lot more than that too. What are some of those value-added things that you've been able to do to help business owners add more value?
Well, the first thing I usually do is when I start working with a business or have the opportunity to meet a business owner, I talk to them about the business and try to learn as much as I can about it. But I'll ask them a pretty simple question, and I tell them I don't want to sound like a Southern Baptist minister, but if your spouse or your partner or your significant other wakes up in the morning and you don't, what happens to your business?
Yeah.
And that gets a lot of eyes widening pretty fast because they haven't really planned for that. That's what we talk about, these disruptions. So things like buy-sell agreements, insured buy-sell agreements, where the company is the beneficiary of a policy and gets the money to help offset the cost of replacing that person, so that the other owner doesn't get left with all the debt and the widow of his partner ends up with all the money. Things like that happen all the time. So we try to really level set the business on a risk basis to say, let's identify what the biggest risk of operating your business are. And then let's de-risk as much as we can. And then let's go to the next phase, which is how do we make your business more valuable? And there are practically, there are 3 or 4 things that practically for any business will determine value. One is the accuracy of the information with which they work, the accounting information, their platforms, their accounting platforms, their ability to keep up with their inventory if they're a producer, their productivity of their people if they're a service business. What kind of information can you glean from your records, and can a buyer glean from your records, so that when they ask you about your results of operations and how much money are you making, they're not taking your word for it. They're looking at the historical information that's been verified by a third party through maybe audits. So the accuracy of your financial information and the verification of it. What's the quality of your business? Oh, well, my business is great. How many complaints do you have? I don't ever have any complaints. How many customers have you ever lost? I never lose a customer. Okay, that's wonderful. Can you prove any of that to me? well, no, I don't have any data. I don't have any verification of that. I don't have any quality scores or anything like that. Is your business, can it be grown? How can I scale it? How can I grow it? What other things can you do? Oh, well, we can grow. We have an unlimited ability to grow. Well, may I ask you why you haven't already done that? So, I mean, those are simple questions, but they're the things that make a difference. And are you overly dependent on any particular vendor, any particular customer, any of your employees? If your sales guy left today, would it hurt a little bit? Would it hurt a lot? If your general manager or you left today, would the business continue with a slight decrease, maybe increase?
Right.
Would it fall off the map? So over dependency on certain elements, way too much. I've got a great emerging client right now. She is getting her product. She invented it. Really brought it from her Middle Eastern heritage. It's hummus, a very simple, creamy substance, not very exciting looking. But she's developed it, and she's got it in Whole Foods, and Kroger's, and Albertsons. She's starting to distribute it all over the place. But she has one co-packager.
Wow.
She has one distributor.
Wow.
So you begin, and it's her on the business side because she's outsourced all of her packaging. She provides the recipes. They crank out the stuff. The distributor sells the stuff, and it's her. So, I sit down and I say, okay, well, what happens if something happens to you? It's over. What happens if the co-packager gets hit by a tornado? Well, it doesn't have to be over, but do you have business interruption insurance to take care of that? What if the co-packager gets a better deal from somebody else and kicks you out? There's a lot of those things. So that's another big risk, is that you're overly dependent, and that you mentioned it earlier. If you're the guy, if you're the business, then I'm sorry, you're probably not going to have anything to sell at the end of the day.
That's right.
When I went to through the Exit Planning Institute and got the information that I got, and any owner should read this book called Walking to Destiny. We don't try to hoard information. We try to get information and create awareness. Walking to Destiny, a new version just came out. 80% of businesses that go to the market to sell won't sell. Now that sounds extreme, but if you think about it, there's about 6 million actual businesses with employees. There's 30 million businesses, but there's holding companies, one person shows. But about 6 million businesses in this country that actually somebody shows up, goes to work every day. So there's a lot of them. There's a lot more sellers than there are buyers. So buyers have the pick of the litter, so to speak. And if you're not, if you're just average or below, they're going to go right on by. If you're if the whole business evolves around you, you have nothing to sell. So that's a stunning realization that many people find out too late. The other realization, Gary, that I would say that I think is important, a lot of business owners don't have a plan for what they're going to do after they sell their business. And because of that simple fact, they don't know if they got enough for their business to live on or not. 75, the guy that set up the Exit Planning Institute says, and the statistics prove it, they do surveys, 75% of the small business owners that sell their business are dissatisfied with their life within 1 year of that, because that was their life. That was what they did when they woke up every morning till they went to sleep at night. If they had a hobby, it was fishing and golf, and you can only do so much. And all of a sudden you wake up and interest rates jump up to 5 or 6%, and inflation goes up to 8%. And the money that you thought you had set aside, you're going to live 20 more years. If you're 70, you or your spouse are probably going to live 20 more years. Do you have enough money at the end of the day, after you sold that business, to generate enough money to live 20 years on? If you don't know the answer to that question, don't sell your business yet. Find out the answer to those things, because you may need to work another couple of 3 years. That may be the only solution.
I'll give you a couple of real world stories just to amplify, piggyback on what you're saying. So talked with a business owner several years ago. His father, a friend of mine, and he had built a business and sold it. And then he started a new one, and he was telling me, I don't have to do this. I said, then why are you doing it? He said, well, I sold my first business and I hunted everywhere I wanted to hunt. I fished everywhere I wanted to fish. And he said, I got bored to death and I needed something to do. And my kids needed somewhere to work. So I started a new business to employ my kids and give me something to do. Because everybody, I don't care who you are, man, woman, child, I don't care what your faith is or isn't, you got to have meaning and purpose to wake up in the morning. If you don't have a meaning and purpose to when you wake up in the morning, your life is going to suck pretty soon. I mean, it really is. Other story I was going to share, working with a guy now, and we were talking about selling his business, and he thought, well, if I could just, sell it and make $1 million, then I'll be set, and, I don't have to do anything. And given his age, I did a little analysis for him, given his lifestyle and how much he could expect to return and inflation and all that kind of stuff. I said, okay, that's going to last you about 10 or 12 years, and then you're going to be 65, and then you're going to be broke. Now, what are you going to do? So you gotta look at those things objectively. And the hardest thing, I think, and I try to tell people this, you got to take the emotion out of it. You got to be real. Got to be objective. You got to detach yourself from the emotion. It's easy for me because I'm kind of detached guy, but for a lot of people, they're really emotional about their business because it's their blood, sweat, and tears. It's their identity. It's who they are. But you got to kind of detach yourself from that. Ask yourself some hard questions to get yourself some